Imagine a quiet American town where nothing extraordinary seems to happen. Kids ride their bicycles through empty streets. Families know their neighbors. And the biggest problem in town appears to be an ordinary missing person case. But then, one night, a 12-year-old boy disappears. There is no clear explanation, no obvious suspect, no sign of where he went. And while his family and friends begin searching for him, something far stranger is happening behind the scenes. A frightened young girl appears on her own. A secret government facility is connected to the mystery, and the boundaries between the normal world and something terrifying begin to break down. This is the beginning of Stranger Things, one of Netflix's most recognizable science fiction mystery series. In this video, we're breaking down Season 1, Episode 1, officially titled Chapter 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers. We'll go through the episode chronologically, introduce the major characters, examine the mysteries and clues, and explain how the ending sets up the story that follows. And because this is a complete episode breakdown, there will be spoilers for the entire first episode. Stranger Things is an American science fiction horror and mystery drama created by Matt Duffer and Ross Duffer, collectively known as the Duffer Brothers. The first season premiered on Netflix on July 15, 2016. The story is set primarily in the fictional town of Hawkins, Indiana. During the 1980s, the series combines science fiction, horror, coming-of-age drama, mystery, and supernatural elements, while heavily drawing on the atmosphere and popular culture of 1980s America. The first episode introduces the central mystery that drives Season 1, the disappearance of Will Byers. The episode begins with a mysterious escape from a secretive government laboratory. A scientist is desperately trying to get away from something inside the facility. He reaches an elevator, believing he has escaped. But when the doors open, the danger is already waiting for him. The episode immediately establishes that Hawkins has a secret. We then move to the home of the Wheeler family, where a group of young friends are playing a long session of Dungeons and Dragons. The group consists of Mike Wheeler, Lucas Sinclair, Dustin Henderson, and Will Byers. They're completely absorbed in their game. To them, the imaginary world of the game is serious business. They're fighting a dangerous creature and trying to decide how their characters should respond. But eventually, Mike's mother tells them that the game has gone on long enough. The boys leave Mike's house and begin their bicycle ride home. This seems like a normal ending to a normal evening. It isn't. Before we meet the children, the episode gives us its first major warning. Inside the mysterious Hawkins Laboratory, a scientist is moving through the building in panic. Something has gone terribly wrong. He reaches an elevator and tries to escape, but the suspense continues even after he enters the elevator. Because the threat isn't ordinary, when the elevator doors open, the episode cuts away before giving us a complete explanation. This opening important because it tells the audience something that the characters don't yet know. There is a dangerous secret operating somewhere near Hawkins. At this point, we don't know what happened inside the laboratory, what escaped, or who is responsible. The mystery is deliberately incomplete. The story then shifts to the Wheeler home. Mike, Lucas, Dustin, and Will are playing Dungeons and Dragons in Mike's basement. The sequence does much more than establish that the boys enjoy a fantasy role-playing game. It introduces their personalities and their friendship. Mike Wheeler is energetic, imaginative, and naturally takes a leadership role among the group. Dustin Henderson is enthusiastic and often provides humor, while also being deeply invested in the game. Lucas Sinclair is more skeptical and practical. He isn't afraid to challenge the others when he thinks they're making a mistake. And Will Byers is quieter and more sensitive than some of his friends. The boys have been playing for hours, and their game reaches an important moment. Their fictional adventure involves confronting a powerful creature. Eventually, the boys' real-world responsibilities interrupt their fantasy world. Mike's mother, Corinne Wheeler, tells them that the night is over. The boys reluctantly stop playing. What makes this scene especially effective is the contrast between the imaginary danger inside the game and the very real danger that we'll about to face. The boys are pretending to fight monsters. Moments later, Will encounter something that may not be imaginary at all. Will gets on his bicycle and starts riding home. The road is dark and quiet. The boys separate, and Will continues alone. As he rides through Hawkins. The episode slowly changes its mood. The familiar suburban environment begins to feel threatening. Will notices something unusual. His bicycle ride becomes a race against an unseen danger. He arrives at his home, enters the house, and tries to get help, but there is no one there. Will becomes increasingly frightened. He grabs a weapon and prepares himself. Then something happens. Outside, the lights behave strangely. Will looks toward the darkness. The danger has followed him. He runs outside and attempts to escape through the woods. Eventually, he disappears. And just like that, the central mystery of Stranger Things begins. Will Byers is missing. The next morning, Will's disappearance becomes a family crisis. His mother, Joyce Byers, immediately realizes that something is wrong. Joyce is a hard-working single mother raising Will and his older brother, Jonathan Byers. She is deeply protective of her children and already lives with the anxiety of trying to keep her family together. Will's disappearance is therefore more than a mystery for Joyce. It is personal. She refuses to accept the idea that her son simply ran away. Joyce contacts the police. The investigation falls to Chief Jim Hopper. Hopper is initially presented as a somewhat laid-back small-town police chief. He is not introduced as a heroic action figure. Instead, he seems like someone who knows Hawkins extremely well and is accustomed to dealing with ordinary local problems. But Will's disappearance is different. There is something unusual about it. Hopper begins investigating the circumstances surrounding Will's disappearance. Hopper and the police begin searching for Will. The community becomes involved. People look through roads, fields, and wooded areas. The search demonstrates to us how important Will is to the people around him. For Will's friends, however, waiting for adults to solve the mystery in enough. Mike, Lucas, and Dustin want to find their friend themselves. They decide to search for Will. This is one of the episode's defining moments, because it establishes the boys as active participants in the mystery rather than simply victims of it. They don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what happened, but they know that Will is their friend. While the search for Will is developing, the episode introduces another mysterious character. A young girl appears alone. She is later identified as 11. Although at this point, the boys don't know much about her. She has a shaved head and wears clothing that suggests she has come from somewhere unusual. Most importantly, she appears frightened, confused, and vulnerable. 11 does not behave like an ordinary child. She has very little understanding of normal life outside the environment she has come from. She also has an unusual connection to the mysterious laboratory. The episode deliberately keeps her background hidden. We don't immediately learn who she is, why she was in the facility, or what abilities she possesses. Instead, the audience is given fragments, and those fragments raise more questions. Mike, Lucas, and Dustin continue searching for Will. During their search, they encounter 11. The boys are surprised to find a young girl alone in the woods. They initially don't know what to make of her. She doesn't provide them with a normal explanation. She is scared and doesn't seem to trust adults. Mike, however, begins to feel that they should help her. This decision becomes extremely important. The boys could have simply reported 11 to an adult. Instead, they bring her into their own world. They hide her and try to figure out who she is. Mike's instinct is largely protective. Lucas is much more suspicious. Dustin, meanwhile, is fascinated by the situation. This creates an early conflict within the group. Should they trust this mysterious girl? Or could she somehow be connected to Will's disappearance? The episode doesn't give us an immediate answer. While the boys are dealing with 11, Joyce's desperation increases. She wants Will back. Every minute that passes makes the situation more frightening. Jonathan also struggles with the disappearance of his younger brother. The relationship between Jonathan and Joyce helps establish the Byers family as emotionally close despite their difficult circumstances. Jonathan is protective of his mother and brother. Joyce, meanwhile, is determined not to give up. Her fear eventually leads her toward a discovery that seems impossible. Joyce receives a phone call. At first, it appears that someone is on the other end. Then the connection becomes distorted. The phone behaves strangely. Joyce hears something that makes her believe the caller could be Will. She desperately tries to communicate, but the signal is interrupted. The event is frightening because it suggests that Will may not simply be missing in the ordinary sense. Perhaps he is alive somewhere. Perhaps he is trying to reach his mother. Or perhaps something else is using the telephone. Joyce doesn't know. But she believes what she experienced, and that belief becomes crucial to the story. Hopper continues, looking into Will's disappearance. He examines the circumstances and questions people connected to the case. At first, the evidence points toward a missing child investigation, but the strange details don't fit neatly together. Hopper is also connected to the Hawkins community in ways that make the case personal. He understands the town. He knows its people, and as he investigates, the possibility grows that the official explanation may not tell the entire story. The laboratory remains in the background. The audience already knows that something happened there. The characters don't yet understand how that secret connects to Will. The episode also introduces Mike's older sister, Nancy Wheeler. Nancy lives in a very different social world from her younger brother. She is beginning to spend more time with Steve Harrington, a popular student who represents the more conventional teenage side of Hawkins. Nancy's storyline introduces another layer to the series. While Mike and his friends are dealing with childhood adventure and mystery, Nancy is dealing with teenage relationships, popularity, and growing independence. Her relationship with Steve is important because it eventually connects the older teenagers to the supernatural events unfolding around Hawkins. The episode also introduces Barb Holland, Nancy's close friend. Barb is more cautious and skeptical than Nancy. Their friendship is immediately recognizable. Nancy is more willing to explore new experiences, while Barb is more concerned about consequences. These relationships may initially seem separate from Will's disappearance. They aren't. The boys begin learning more about 11. They discover that she can communicate, but she has difficulty explaining herself. Her behavior suggests that she has spent much of her life in a controlled environment. She also appears terrified of being found. That fear is not irrational. The people searching for her are connected to the same secret facility introduced at the beginning. The boys don't fully understand this yet, but the audience can see the connection. 11 is not simply a random girl who happens to appear in the woods. She is connected to the larger mystery, and she may know something about Will. The name 11 itself is unusual. It doesn't sound like a normal child's name. That's because it isn't really a conventional name at all. The number is associated with her identity within the mysterious laboratory. The markings on her body provide another clue about her past. The episode doesn't explain everything immediately. Instead, it asks the audience to pay attention. Who created this identity? Why was 11 being kept inside a laboratory? What happened to the other people connected to the experiments? And why does she seem to understand the danger surrounding Will? These questions become central to the season. Will is the missing boy at the center of the story. He is intelligent, creative, and deeply connected to his friends. His disappearance drives almost every major storyline in the episode. Although Will spends much of the episode absent, his presence is felt everywhere. His friends are searching for him, his mother is desperate to find him, his brother is worried about him, and the mystery surrounding his disappearance creates the larger supernatural conflict. Joyce is Will's mother. She is emotional, determined, and fiercely protective. When others begin looking for rational explanations, Joyce is willing to trust her instincts. Her emotional response In simply panic. It becomes a form of determination. She refuses to believe that her son is gone without an explanation. Jonathan is Will's older brother. He is quieter and more serious than many of the other teenagers. His family situation has forced him to mature quickly. His concern for Will adds an emotional dimension to the investigation. Hopper is Hawkins' police chief. He initially appears casual and somewhat cynical, but as the case develops, his investigative instincts become more visible. He represents the adult side of the mystery. The children investigate because they refuse to wait. Hopper investigates because it is his responsibility. Eventually, those two paths begin moving toward the same truth. Mike is one of Will's closest friends. He is imaginative, loyal, and naturally inclined to lead. When Will disappears, Mike refuses to abandon him. His decision to help Eleven also demonstrates his compassion. Lucas is practical and skeptical. He doesn't automatically trust Eleven. His suspicion creates tension with Mike, but Lucas's caution is unreasonable from his perspective. A strange girl appearing in the woods with no clear explanation could easily be dangerous. Dustin is curious, funny, and enthusiastic. He often acts as the group's source of energy. His friendship with Mike and Lucas is one of the emotional foundations of the series. 11 It's the episode's greatest mystery. She is frightened, isolated, and clearly connected to the laboratory. Her unusual abilities and mysterious past suggest that she may be central to whatever happened to Will. But the episode wisely keeps most of her story hidden. The episode's tension reaches a new level as the different mysteries begin connecting. Will has disappeared. 11 has escaped from somewhere. The laboratory is hiding something. Joyce believes Will is attempting to communicate, and the boys have taken 11 into their confidence. The most important development is the realization that Will's disappearance may be connected to forces that the people of Hawkins don't understand. The series is no longer presenting a simple missing child mystery. There is something supernatural beneath the surface, but the characters are still only beginning to discover it. The ending of the episode is designed less as a conclusion and more as a promise. The immediate question is simple: where is Will Byers? The police and his family continue searching. His friends refuse to give up. 11 has entered the boys' lives, and the mysterious laboratory remains connected to the unanswered questions. The episode also makes the audience understand that Will's disappearance is an isolated event. There are at least two mysteries operating simultaneously. The first is the disappearance itself. The second is 11's origin and the secret behind the Hawkins Laboratory. The story is structured so that viewers begin connecting those mysteries before the characters have enough information to do so. That is one of the major strengths of the premiere. Instead of explaining the supernatural mythology immediately, the episode gives us clues and allows the mystery to grow. The first major twist is that the episode begins by showing us something mysterious inside the Hawkins Laboratory before the main characters know anything about it. The second is Will's disappearance. The third is 11's sudden appearance. And the fourth is the suggestion that Will may still be alive and somehow capable of reaching the outside world. Each revelation changes our understanding of the previous scenes. The laboratory sequence no longer feels like an unrelated opening. 11 no longer feels like a random stranger, and Will's disappearance no longer looks like an ordinary case. One of the episode's most important techniques is its use of Dungeons and Dragons. The game isn't simply decoration. It establishes the vocabulary the boys use to understand danger. When they encounter frightening events in the real world, their imagination and knowledge of fantasy creatures influence how they interpret what is happening. The series repeatedly uses the boundary between fantasy and reality. The boys begin with monsters that exist inside a game. Soon, the possibility of a real monster becomes impossible to ignore. The episode also uses bicycles as an important visual symbol of childhood independence. The boys move around Hawkins largely on their own. They can travel beyond the immediate supervision of their parents. That freedom makes their adventures possible. But Will's bicycle ride also demonstrates the danger of that independence. The same Suburban environment that feels safe during the day becomes frightening at night. Another important element is the contrast between ordinary Hawkins and the secret laboratory. The town represents everyday American life. The laboratory represents hidden government power and scientific experimentation. The two worlds exist physically, close to each other, but the people of Hawkins have no idea how connected they are. A confirmed fact is that Will disappears after riding home from Mike's house. It is also confirmed that 11 has escaped from a mysterious facility and is connected to the laboratory. The episode establishes that strange events are occurring around Hawkins. However, viewers should be careful not to treat every early clue as a complete explanation. At this stage, the episode deliberately withholds information. Any interpretation about the exact nature of the supernatural threat is incomplete until later episodes reveal more. That uncertainty is intentional. The premiere establishes nearly every major storyline that develops throughout the first season. Will's disappearance becomes the central mystery. 11 becomes one of the most important characters. Mike, Lucas, and Dustin become investigators in their own way. Joyce's determination becomes a major emotional force. Hopper's investigation gradually uncovers evidence that Hawkins has a much darker history than it appears to. The Hawkins Laboratory also becomes increasingly important. Most importantly, the premiere establishes the show's central idea: there is another reality or dimension connected to the world the characters know, and something has gone terribly wrong at the boundary between them. The first episode doesn't explain that mythology completely. Instead, it gives us the first crack in the wall. Stranger Things was deliberately designed with a strong 1980s atmosphere. The series draws influence from the science fiction, horror, and adventure stories that shaped the Duffer brothers' childhood. The premiere also establishes the show's unusual balance of genres. It can move from childhood comedy to family drama, teenage romance, police investigation, science fiction, and horror without completely abandoning any of them. The young characters are not treated simply as comic relief. Their friendship is essential to the mystery. Likewise, the adults are not simply background characters. Joyce and Hopper become crucial investigators in their own right. The episode's title, The Vanishing of Will Byers, immediately tells us what the central mystery is, but the broader title structure, Chapter 1, makes the series feel almost like a modern serialized novel. Every episode adds another piece to the larger mystery. Chapter 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers, works because it doesn't try to explain everything. Instead, it creates questions. Who or what is inside the Hawkins Laboratory? Why was 11 being kept there? What happened to Will? Is Will alive? What is the strange force affecting Hawkins? And most importantly, can Mike, Lucas, Dustin, Joyce, and Hopper find the truth before it is too late? The episode begins with a scientist running for his life. It ends with a missing child, a mysterious girl, a worried family, and an entire town searching for answers. And that's exactly what makes the premiere so effective. It takes a familiar setting, a quiet American town, and slowly reveals that something impossible is hiding underneath it. Will's disappearance is the spark. 11 is the unexpected clue. The laboratory is the locked door, and the rest of the season is the story of the characters trying to open it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. What did you think was really happening to Will when you first watched the episode? Which character was your favorite, and what was the biggest clue you noticed? Subscribe to Screen Central for more web series, TV series, and movie breakdowns, ending explained videos, and detailed episode analyses. And turn on notifications so you never miss our future uploads.